do you think it's possible to still get wealthy in today's world? And here's what I'll tell you. I think it's more than possible, and almost, I hate to say it this way, easier than ever with so many different opportunities and ways to make money. But here is an interesting story. I, as a real estate team leader, we get to meet lots of clients who buy and sell real estate. We get lots of people moving to where I live in Reno from California. And it's a very interesting that happened today, as we had a client who was writing an offer on a house for cash. And the offer was going to be for $1.7 million. And whenever I get someone who's able to write an offer on a house for $1.7 million, I like to see if they're willing to talk to me and answer questions about how they put themselves in the financial position to not only, one, have $1.7 million, but feeling comfortable about writing a cash offer on a house for it. Because here's the thing. If they're writing a cash offer on a house for that much money, and it's not contingent on the sale of another house, so it's not like they're taking the equity from a previous house and that's where they're getting the cash from. They haven't even sold the other property in California yet, and they have this cash available to them in order to write that offer. And I was curious to find out how they got there. The funny part about it is, if you met and saw this couple, he's wearing a flannel shirt, old jeans, some dirty work boots. She's just wearing like a fleece jacket because she was a little bit cold in the office, and some jeans and a visor. If you saw them and the car they drove up in and just looked at them, there's not one thing about them that would show them or make them look like a wealthy couple. And by all means, if they're writing a $1.7 million offer for a house, they are definitely a wealthy couple. Now, how wealthy, I don't know. But it was very curious. So I started asking some questions on how they got themselves here. And shockingly enough, it's the same old story. So they both talked about how they're college educated and they had some student loans, which, of course, in today's dollars, they didn't tell me the exact amount of those loans, but those loans would have felt like small amounts of money in today's dollars. But at the time, he said it felt like a lot of money to them back then. And so, of course, slowly over time, they paid off the debts. He's never paid, he said to me, he goes, I've never paid 1 cent, not $1 in interest on a credit card. I asked him if they ever had a car loan. The funny part about it was they just said for the first time in their lives ever, they have their first ever car loan. And here's what's so funny about it is they bought this Toyota. They were looking for cars. They talked to multiple people and felt like they got a really good price on this car they bought. But they did, the car dealership was offering some special financing that they were able to have a 4-year car loan at 1% interest. So they're paying 1% interest on their loan. He goes, and we took the money that we were going to use to buy the car, bought a U.S. Treasury yield that was paying 4.25%. So they're earning 3.25% on their money that they were just going to write a check for the car, and instead turned into a car loan at 1% and turned the money around and made some extra interest. So those are the kind of small, smart things that people that are financially literate and understand how they can take their money and make their money make money. So I don't know how much the car was. I didn't ask. Well, let's say it was a $40,000 car and you're earning an extra 3.25% interest over the next 4 years. That's free money for doing nothing other than just being smart and educated, understanding how that works. So it's very interesting to me how people got there. But really, the longer term story was this. He goes, we always just live within our means. We live smartly. They always say they would live frugally. Whenever they traveled, they would make sure that they didn't overspend on their travel or stay in too nice of a hotel. And I'm sure there are times where they wish they were doing something a little more fancy or maybe a little more nice. But these are examples and stories that I can find over and over and over again. And it was funny because I turned that story around to him and I talked about it, because there's 2 things in my life that I have that sometimes people will ask me about, or maybe not so much my car anymore, but will ask me about, that show signs of wealth. And one of them is, and you may have seen them in the videos that I do, is I wear this watch. And it is a Rolex watch. I don't even know the exact, but it's kind of your standard, for Rolex, kind of your standard Rolex watch. But this watch, I started wearing about 15 or so years ago. It was actually my dad's watch that I inherited when he passed away, that he wore for 20 plus years before that. So it's got to be damn near a 40-year-old watch. But what's funny is when I first started wearing it, I would get people asking me about it. Some are just watch collectors and say, oh, that's a really nice, kind of almost antique watch. Others would give me bullshit about saying, ooh, Mr. Richie, fancy guy with his fancy rich watch. And when I would get those questions or people would say those things to me, I would ask them, I hate to say it this way, kind of an asshole sometimes, and say, hey, do you want to know where I got this watch? And they would kind of have this look on their face like, that seems like an interesting thing to say. And I would tell them, hey, I didn't buy this watch. You can find one very similar to it these days. And I think they're about $10,000 or $12,000 for one of these watches. But I would ask them, where I got this watch. You want to know where? And I said, well, my dad had to pass away so that I could start wearing this watch. And I would much happily, have it on his wrist and have him still be here and not have the Rolex watch than to be wearing it. So, don't always judge people when they have fancy things. It was the same thing here that I drive around. I have it's either 2013 or 14. I don't even know, to be honest with you. I drive around in a Mercedes. So I'm here in Reno today, driving around in my car. It's an ML 350 Mercedes that I bought. I think it was 3 or 4 years old when I bought it. And I think at the time for a brand new one, they were around $70,000, $75,000. And I bought mine. It was 4 years old or 3 years old. And when I bought it, I paid $40,000 for mine, which still is not an inexpensive car. But the other thing people don't realize is that doing what I do for a living and buying the car in the name of my business, I was able to take that car because it was over 6,000 pounds. If you don't know the over 6,000 pound rule, Google it. And because it was over 6,000 pounds, I was able to write the entire car off in the first year. And at that time, I was at the peak of my real estate career, was making lots of money, and I was in the top tax bracket. So let's just use 40% as the top tax bracket. Well, I was going to pay that money, 40% of that $40,000 in cash that I had as taxes to the government anyway, which would have been another $16,000 to the government. But instead, I took that $40,000, bought this car, wrote the whole thing off in 1 year. And yes, I still had to use up the cash, but in reality, because I would have used that $16,000 to pay taxes, I used it to buy this car. And so in reality, I only paid $24,000 for this car, which I have now still driving almost 9 years later, never had a car payment on it, and was able to take great care of it. And in the meantime, I have a $24,000 car that I couldn't have found anything not even close as nice to this. And so, do I think it's still capable for people to get rich in today's world? Absolutely. Do I think sometimes people judge others for the clothes they wear or the watch they have or the car they drive? Absolutely. And just know, if you understand how money and finance work and how these games work, one, it's absolutely still able to get rich in today's world. And two, there's lots of smart things that people with money understand that can make better use of their money so that they're not out there just buying a brand new $40,000 car that's worth $30,000 a year later with a car payment that I just made for the last 5 years. I didn't have to do any of those kind of things. I was able to save up, build up, and I talked to my CPA that year and he said, hey, you guys made great income this year. If you're an ability that you need a new car, you need to do something, this would be a great year for you to do that. And that's what we did. And I haven't done it since. And I'm sure there are years he probably would have said you should buy another car. But in the meantime, all I've had is service and maintenance on this car that I've been driving for a long time. And I'm literally just about to hit 150,000 miles on this car. And at some point, I'll probably do something similar again. But in the meantime, just know, once you start making money, decent amount of money, and you start doing smart things with your money and your budget's in place and you're not using your money to pay bad debts on credit cards and car loans and student loans and all that other stuff, it makes becoming wealthy or getting to that point of financial freedom that I'm always talking about a lot easier and smarter. So yes, it is perfectly possible to get wealthy in today's world, and you don't have to make tons and tons of money to do it. So if you want to know more about the best ways to do this, one, to increase your income, reduce your expenses, and figure out how ways to now save and invest and budget and do all the smart things with finance and money, by all means, follow this channel, subscribe to this channel. Happy to get you as much information on money and finance as we can. And I'm right now in the process of creating a course so that hopefully you're watching this as a young person and we can start off teaching you all the things that you need to know and learn so that you can be smart with money and finance. You can take the most opportunities of the money you make to build more wealth. And as I always say, have your money make money. That's how things really get going, when you're able to now have ways to earn an income without trading your time for money, and go from there. So always fun to talk to people that have won at the game of money, that are now, even older than I am, but have done smart things financially for the long haul, and start to get real life, real world examples on what you should do, how you should do it, and go from there. And at this point, what's so funny is they might not even be, I asked him, is this going to be their forever home? A $1.7 million house that I know right off the bat he wants to spend quite a bit of money and build a shed on, or build a big outbuilding, preferably 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. He may or may not be able to do it on this house, but either way, he's going to spend more money after this. And he said, honestly, this may not be for our forever house. There's some other things in the works that might work out, where they might end up with a big windfall of money selling a business down the road. And if they do, he goes, then likely we would probably sell this house someday and turn around and really get what we want, which is so funny that at 1.7, it's like, not that they're settling because it's a really nice house, but it really isn't the ultimate dream home that they have in mind. There are other things that happen for them well. So with that being said, hopefully that story can give you some motivation and some guidance that learning about money and finance and figuring out all the ways to long-term build up your wealth can absolutely happen. And yes, you can get wealthy in today's world. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. There are no dumb questions, and you too can win at the game of money and finance. So check out the other videos on the channel. Check out this video we have right here for you so that you can learn more about money and finance, and you too can win and become financially free and financially independent in whatever way and dreams you have. Thanks for watching.